One of my earliest memories is a row of skulls, or rather, skull replicas. H. habilis, H. erectus, H. neanderthalensis, H. florencensis. I remember feeling around my child-sized head for any similarities. In retrospect, that was the start of my career. I'm a paleoanthropologist, and my field of specialty is the interaction between Homo sapiens and our closest hominid relatives. For a fascinating period, we shared our icy and inhospitable planet with beings that were like us, but different. We fought, traded, and even mated with them, yet we know so little about what their lives were like. That's why it felt like the find of the century at first. The intact skeletons of at least 3 different types of hominids, dating to at least 50,000 years ago, preserved perfectly by volcanic ash. The suddenness of the eruption captured the scene so perfectly that it almost seemed frozen in time. If not for that, what we found wouldn't feel so disturbing. We can imagine the dig as divided into 3 sites, A, B, and C. Site A is simply put, a pit of bones. My intent is to not exaggerate or frighten, but I've been at this dig for over 3 weeks and we've yet to reach the bottom. Thousands of bone sapiens, neanderthalensis, and others, all mixed together over who knows how much time. Many of the bones show evidence of being chewed on, as though the flesh had been stripped from them shortly before their deaths. That's Site A. And then there's Site B. This area consists of a single large stone and 5 hominid skeletons, 2 H. neanderthalensis, and 3 H. sapiens. Their positions, as well as surrounding artifacts, such as the remains of hide cord, suggest that all 3 were bound hand and foot, and then heaped up in preparation for something, possibly some kind of sacrifice, or even butchery for meat. Finally, Site C consists of the remains of 1 male H. sapiens, 1 female H. neanderthalensis, and 1 set of remains yet to be identified. Although these are far from scientific terms, I like to call this one the action scene. The unidentified hominid appears to have been attacked by the other 2, who, judging by the hide cord remains around their wrists and ankles, were attempting to escape. Their desperate attack appears to have failed just before the entire scene was preserved in ash. The female H. neanderthalensis suffered a shattered wrist and 2 broken ribs. A broken flint axe was found near the male H. sapiens, whose spine had been snapped near the neck. While I dusted off and arranged the bones of the 3rd, unidentified hominid, I couldn't help but wonder, did you do this? The 3rd hominid found at Site C is, quite frankly, like nothing we've ever seen before. At first, I thought I was looking at a standard H. sapiens, until several things stopped making sense. Firstly, Subject C, as we call her, has arms, fingers, and incisors much longer than any other known hominid. Secondly, her bones themselves appear changeable. Her still sharp incisors could have been retracted, likewise for her freakishly long fingers. Even her skull, which is found appeared more ape-like than hominid, seemed modular. This hominid would have been capable of rearranging her facial features. If she had wanted to, Subject C could have changed her appearance to look like an ordinary human. He arrived at the dig the day after Subject C was found. He came at night in a black helicopter, whose whirring rotary blades woke me up from a bad dream. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing in the searchlight's glow. A hulking figure in a gray three-piece suit, followed by two bodyguard types, also in business clothing. No one else had been scheduled at the site. Least of all, anyone so unequipped for the rugged and remote environment that we were working in. From there, the mystery only deepened. The dig site was managed by Dr. Carl-chan, a legend in the field, who had been leading expeditions like ours while I was still in diapers. Carl-chan could be counted on for three things: his dedication to science, his obsessive attention to detail, and his hair-trigger temper. As these strangers crossed the site, I watched him storm red-faced out of his quarters. He held on his hat, his beard blowing around in the helicopter's artificial wind. Carl-chan looked like he was about to give the new arrivals an earful for the disturbance, but after a few close whispers, he went back to bed, quiet and submissive. "We're going to be sharing management of the dig from this point forward," Carl-chan told us the next morning at breakfast. His voice was hoarse, his face pale and haggard. "So please, let's all try to just get along." Get along? I couldn't believe it. This was a man who had beaten an intern with a hardback copy of On the Origin of Species because the unfortunate teenager had forgotten to clean his brushes. The Dr. Mark Carl-chan, who I knew, wouldn't share management of a sandbox. Shouts and questions flew through the air, like we were all reporters at a presidential press conference and war had just been declared. The answers that we got back were evasive and unsatisfactory. The new arrivals were from a respected institute, and they were here to ensure the quality and accuracy of our research. Carl-chan had absolute faith in their ability to make the right decisions on behalf of our group, and we were to treat them with the utmost respect. Most of that told us exactly nothing, except for the last bit. There was a fear and a warning in Carl-chan's hard turquoise eyes. He was telling us to be careful around our uninvited guests. The powdered eggs and instant coffee became a knot in my stomach. What the heck was going on? With no new information forthcoming, I headed over to Site C, where I would set up the three hominids on separate exam tables, each bone laid out and marked. I was about to go back and continue excavating the site when I felt this strange tingle in the back of my neck. A hulking shadow fell over the middle table. I heard my name, and before I knew it, I had been clamped in an eager two-palmed handshake. The big man that I had seen leaving the helicopter the night before introduced himself as Dr. Lemire and insisted to know how I was doing, if I had everything that I needed. His manner of speech reminded me of the television preachers of my childhood. An endless stream of honey-sweet, bathwater warm words meant to put the listener at ease and set them up for a pitch. Dr. Lemire feigned interest in all of my specimens, but his beady hazel eyes kept darting back to the middle table and Subject C. Truly fascinating. He was standing over her now, looking almost lovingly down at the skull below. Have you found any others like her? I responded in the negative. Not even fragments, perhaps partially destroyed elements that could be identified. I shook my head again. We've reached the bottom of the ash layer all around the site. I sighed unhappily. At breakfast, I had made a silent promise to limit how much I would share with these unwelcome outsiders, and yet there was something weird about Lemire that made me want to pour my heart out to him. My doubts about the dig, my own abilities, my choice of career, everything. It felt almost pheromonal, and it was deeply unsettling. I was soon rambling bitterly in spite of myself. The chances of finding another like Subject C are extremely slim. Without further evidence, she's likely to be classified as an anomaly instead of, Lemire asked sharply. Instead of a new species of hominid, radically different in the physiology, brain capacity, and probably culture as well. I perked up. But there are many hominids known by only a single fossil, sometimes even a jawbone. Genetic testing will tell us more. Well, I imagine all your data on her is stored on your university hard drive, yes? Lemire's eyes drifted to my computer setup on a nearby table. Well, yes, but... Excellent. The two bodyguard types appeared as if out of nowhere. With horror, I realized that they were preparing to disassemble my computer. Hey, I shouted. Lemire looked at me coolly, all the kindness gone from his expression. Much care must be taken with a specimen like this. Such an incredible find must be stored in the best facilities and studied by top experts in the field. Wouldn't you agree? Are you questioning my professionalism? I stammered. I couldn't believe it. Weeks of work, the crown jewel of my research. No, Subject C is my find. She belongs to... This site and everything in it belongs to your university doctor, who funded the dig. I have here a signed agreement granting me custody of Subject C and all relevant findings. I snapped the paper out of Lemire's hands, a petulant gesture of helpless rage. I didn't have a leg to stand on, and Lemire knew it. The fine print was just the nail in the coffin, my coffin. I was counting on this dig, this publication. I understand how upsetting this must be for you, Lemire commented, like we were discussing the weather instead of my life. But I'm convinced that in time you'll see it's for the best. Although I couldn't remember the last time that I had cried, I felt hot tears welling up in the corners of my eyes. It wasn't fair. You're concerned about what research you can present from this dig, I'm sure. Publish or perish, isn't that what the saying is? Lemire clapped me on the shoulder. Well, no need to worry. Your cooperation today won't be forgotten. Who knows, you might see renewed interest in your older publications, maybe even a book deal. Who knows what your future might hold? If you keep your mouth shut. Although the threat was only implied, it came across crystal clear. Even so, a vague sense of calm flooded through me. I felt drunk, even a bit dizzy. Maybe this was the right thing to do, after all. Lemire would take care of everything. With his big, strong hands and wise eyes, He was a man to trust. Putting Subject C into the care of such a man should have been my idea all along. Wait, this was all a mirror and I was sure of it. Somehow he was manipulating my emotions, but there is a problem, a fly in the ointment. It had been the paper he had shown me. If only I could remember what it was. How did you know? I muttered under my breath. Lemire turned around from where he had been supervising the breakdown of my equipment. In this paper you presented to the university, you provided a detailed description of her. I pointed to the fanged, human-like skeleton on the middle table. And yet no one outside of this dig should have had any idea that such a creature ever existed. Lemire crossed his arms. I couldn't tell if he was pleased or disappointed. Behind him, my evidence was being carried away in waterproof boxes. We were alone. He took a step toward me and then another, until our noses were almost touching. His presence was even more intoxicating up close. It made me want to swoon like the protagonist of a Victorian novel. As stupid as it sounds, I fixated on his shiny black shoes. If I looked anyplace else, I felt sure that I would faint or be hypnotized or... Lemire used 2 fingers to lift my chin up to meet his gaze. With horror, I realized his fingers had extended almost twice the normal length. His face broke and shifted until I was looking at something with long incisors, ape-like eyes, and movable features. In short, something very much like Subject C. It smiled.